on the adoption of the committee report?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Brent Sampson. Any further discussion on the committee of the whole report? Right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Right, that motion is carried. Thank you very much, Deputy Warden. It was a busy committee of the whole, for sure. Okay, the next item on the agenda is correspondence, and we do have a couple of pieces that require action. The first is a memo from Jim Davis, the interim CFO, regarding a grant request from the Administration de Pays de Gras for infrastructure grant funds in the amount of $20,000. And I would like to thank Jim and the UCAO McCulloch for a very thorough memo. It gives some background on the eligibility, potential eligibility of this fund, or this request for Canada Community Building Funds, and it does look like it does qualify, as well as the alignment. I just wanted to draw councillors' attention to the alignment check boxes at the bottom of the memo, saying that it does align with waterfront development. So much appreciated. It's a great addition to the memo. So the recommendation, I guess, or the request is that that the investment be $20,000 from the overall waterfront development funds of $50,000 that we had earmarked for CCBF funds. We have, I think, already committed $10,000 of those funds, so there's a $40,000 balance remaining. So this would fit within that funding envelope. So I'll open it for discussion or a motion should councillors decide that this is an appropriate step to take. And maybe I'll start with you, Deputy Warden, if you wanted to add any comments.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Warden. For me, again, thank you to Jim Davis and staff for working on this and checking it out and approving this and letting us know that it is eligible for the waterfront development fund. So for me, yeah, I'd like to see us approve that 20,000 and make sure that they get that very important work done when it comes to the wharf in Pays de Gras. It's a very important piece of property and location for recreation and for the fishing industry in our area. So, yeah, I'd be in favor of approving the 20,000 under the waterfront development. Thank you.
Would you like to make a motion on that?
Yeah, I'll make that motion. Yes, please.
Okay, so the motion has been made to support the $20,000 of investment through the CCBF for the Pays de Gras, the Administration de Pays de Gras, for their project. So could I have a seconder on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion on this motion? Questions?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. From what I gather, is that what they're looking for is for us to cover the complete cost on this, is it? Because I see the project budget looks like it's the 20,000 plus HST. That's the only thing that concerned me on it. Was I'm more than willing to see us contribute to this. I think it's a worthwhile project. Just whether or not we should be providing 100% of the shot, whether or not that's appropriate.
Yeah, certainly that's the nature of the memo that was provided. So any other questions? Councillor Melanie Sampson.
I had the exact same concern. I just, that's not our typical process is to fund the full project, and although I know they're not, they don't have a ton of equity in their association, they do have some money there that could cover half. So I support it, and again, to clarify, it is for recreation, and that's why they said the small port wouldn't provide any funding because it didn't generate any commercial revenue, and I understand that, but and think it's important and would support it, but would be interested in a 50% support, not 100%.
Okay, so the total project value, including the HST, was $23,000. So a 50% would be whatever half of that is. So 11.5, right? So well, they've outlined it as a cost, so I'm assuming no, but we would have to double check on that in terms of their being HST registered. So my understanding from the funds that they kind of outlined is that they can't take the operational funds to use towards this because it's not related directly to the industry piece. Is that what I was understanding? I wasn't sure about that one. Council.
Yeah, I thought it was that they couldn't access other funding.
Small craft harbor.
Yeah, from small craft harbors, but that could be incorrect, but that's how I understood it when I read through.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brent Sampson. Councillor Deputy Warden, I know there's a suggestion that the motion be amended to support at 50%, I guess up to 11,500, depending on the HST structure. Did you? Yep.
Yeah, for me, I think the first request was for maintenance, and that wasn't applicable, right, and didn't qualify, so it had to be a brand new repair. So, yeah, I don't think they could afford the extra. I think the first request was for 15,000, and this one here is for 20, which I think it's going to be closer to the 23,000 range. So, that $8,000 extra, I don't think they're looking. I don't know if they can afford that $8,000 hit. So. For me, I'd like to see it, fully funded, right? So, thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Warden. Councillor Digdon, did you have a question?
Actually, just, I guess probably a little of both. Maybe a little clarification. So I know in the past we used the CCBF fund. As a rule of thumb, I do know, quite like Councillor Sampson's had stated, that we usually only do the 50%, but do we also just do the 50% for CCBF? Or do we usually just do the 50% out of our?
Yeah, I think the last one. I believe the last project that we approved was at the 50% mark, so, yeah. Councillor Sampson?
So I'd just like to point out a couple of things that are on the balance sheet of the group, and one is that they do have HST receivable and payable in their balance sheet, so that tells me that they are HST registrants. So although they may in their budget be listing it a different way, I feel fairly confident that they would be, because otherwise it wouldn't sit there. And again, I just want to remind ourselves that even if we took their current assets minus their liabilities, right, so their cash that they have on hand and what they owe, they still have an equity position of about 33,000 basically of cash available. And for the last number of years, they've had some profits because they do have retained earnings there. So I do believe that they have financial, from what I'm seeing on a financial statement outlook, they have financial capacity to fund the other 50%.
All right, thank you, Councillor. All right, so it sounds like we've got a bit of a conversation that, in terms of the level of support. Councillors seem like they're pretty well in favor of supporting the project in general, but we just need to get some clarification on the level of support. And, I'm kind of mixed minds about it as well. So I am wondering if we do need maybe some additional communication with the folks from the society to find out if they would have if there are any restrictions on these funds, maybe that would prevent them from being able to expend them on this type of a project. I just don't know enough about it. So, Councillor Melanie, yeah.
I certainly take your point, but like typically if funds are restricted for a certain purpose, they're shown that way in their financial statements, and the funds aren't shown that way. It's not been indicated in their application. I'm happy if others feel we have more information that we are requiring, but I do suspect they also want to get the project on the go, and I can appreciate that as well. So I'm fine either way, but again, yeah.
If I may, we could buy a little time here where the previous grant requests that we've received this fiscal have been deferred till budget, and we're looking at budget next week. That does buy us time to ask a little more questions if council would like, so that it could be addressed after the budget is determined. Okay. So that could buy you a week or two right there, and give us time to get a little more information for you, if you think that would help.
Okay, Deputy Warden, I'm just going to maybe defer back to you for a moment, just in terms of whether or not you've communicated with the folks. Is there a time sensitivity on construction around this piece of work that you know of?
I don't think it's that urgent. I mean, the sooner the better, of course, but, yeah, I will, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with Councillor Melanie Sampson. Like, I definitely want to support the project, but I think I think it'd be much more responsible of us to go in the 50% range, especially based on, you know, they're showing earnings over 20,000 last year, and if we support this 100%, it sets a precedent, and I don't think it's something we've normally done since we've been here, but I am very much in support of the project. So I think we have a motion, and it's been seconded on the floor. You know, we could move forward with that, and if it passes, great, and if it doesn't, well then there could be a second motion to fund it at 50%.
Sure. Yeah.
Minus
Unless you wanna
HST.
make a friendly amendment to it. You know, or we could, you know, vote on the motion, and if it does not pass, then we could refer it to.
Yeah. Yeah, or, I mean, we can, you know, the 50% would be like 13 or 10, yeah, 10.5, yeah. Oh, yeah, because it's HST, yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I'd like to see if we're not gonna go to full 20, you know, I'd like to see at least go to the initial request, which was the 15,000, right? I'd be happy if we could get to that number, right?
I'm not sure where the 15,000.
Sorry, Madam Chair, there was an initial request that came in that didn't satisfy the requirements for CCBF.
Okay,
So
Okay.
it never made it to this table.
okay, all right. Okay. I'm not sure we'll have a agreement on a friendly amendment at this stage of the game to the tune of 15. I think I'd need it at least to see what that was, and I'm not sure that it wouldn't qualify anyways, I guess, is the issue. But, at this stage of the game, I'm thinking perhaps we should vote on the motion and then consider a referral to budget if it doesn't pass. Would you be okay with that, Deputy Warden? Yeah, okay. All right. Any further discussion on this?
Yeah, I think we could simply make a second motion if it doesn't pass. Yeah.
So the motion currently is at the 100% at 20,000, so I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Nay. So that motion is not carried, but I would like to ask for a second motion to refer this to budget to see what we can do for the committee within our funding limits and also within our current practice of, you know, how we've gone about this, and give a little extra time to have some communication with the folks at the Port Authority. Would that be okay?
I'd make a motion to fund it to the tune of 50% now, 10,000,
Okay.
if there's a seconder.
Okay.
There is, I would second that.
Okay. So we've got a motion on the floor to fund. Sorry, thank you. And a reminder, buttons. So we've got a motion on the floor to fund the project at 50%, so $10,000 towards the overall $20,000 project without a referral to budget. Okay, so I'll open that for discussion again as well. So, councillors?
Yeah, so I guess the only thing I would add, Madam Warden, and I really don't know, and I should have had it with me tonight, is if there's anything left in our in our own district fund.
Well, we're in a brand new fiscal, right? So.
We haven't approved the budget yet, but this generally came from a different pot of funding, that's why it was referenced.
Sorry, nobody's lit up, sorry. Yeah, so the question from Councillor Digdon was whether or not we could potentially support this through our other grant stream. And I think the answer is probably not the same exact project, but there could be future projects that we could, entertain, certainly. We're full at our, in terms of our grant stream right now because we haven't approved our budget yet. So that's definitely a possibility. For sure.
Yeah, it was just that this was out of a different sort of funding, like a different pot of money, basically. So if we were dipping into both, then I don't know that sends the right message either. Like the reason for doing this waterfront development funding was so we'd have larger amounts for projects exactly like this. And I think it's it's a great thing that we want to fund.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All right, so if there's none, I'm going to call for the vote. So all those in favor of funding this project at 50% to the tune of $10,000, please say aye. 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 Those opposed? Nay. Abstention?
No, well, half is better than none.
Okay.
Well, I'll say that with my mic on. Half is better than none, I guess.
Okay, so that motion is carried. Folks, I know that's always tough to kind of figure out. The motion is carried at the 50% mark for $10,000 for the Administration de Petit de Gras. And it's always a tough decision because you kind of worry about the capacity of these organizations to match. But we'll move forward in that regard and, hopefully continue discussions with the folks in that organization. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a memo from Shannon Murray, the Director of Community Development and Recreation. And this one is regarding additional public engagement expenditures for the multi-use facility feasibility study. So following an update we had from the consultants several months back, we had identified some gaps in the consultation and we had made some specific recommendations and I think provided some contact information as well for people to be engaged, and it was namely, our friends in Budladak, as well as I think there were some arts and culture type groups identified around the county to be contacted as well. And so it's looking like the consultant group would charge us an additional $9,825 plus HST. So the motion that's being suggested by staff at this stage, if we want to proceed, would be that we approve the additional engagement expenditure of $9,825 plus HST and further move to proceed with the engagement prior to the approval of the 2024-25 budget. So assuming, Troy, that this would come out of this current fiscal year's budget, so it wouldn't be an impact to last year. Okay. Okay, so any discussion on this one, or if someone would care to make the motion to proceed? Okay. All right, so I'm not hearing a motion on the floor and not really any discussion, so, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. True.
For this one, we'll ask staff to maybe brainstorm a little bit on how we might be able to proceed in a different manner. I think it's, I think there's just some hesitation to proceed with additional engagement when we feel like the first round wasn't necessarily completed, so, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda then is the review of the action items. Is not. It's for information purposes. The municipality of the County of Richmond regarding the NSCC submission to the Sustainable Jobs Transition Fund proposal. Any questions on that? All right, next item then is the review of the action items. And are there any questions on the action item review? So many action items. But it really speaks to the amount of work that we're getting done at this council table, and it's kind of impressive to reflect back on 4 years of actions, right? So I'm really glad we started this exercise. Okay, if there's no questions on the action items, we'll move on to the items added to the agenda. And so the first item added was the joint meeting status. So this arrived via an email on Thursday of last week and was from Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton. So in the discussion on having a potentially joint council meeting with the town of Port Hawkesbury and Richmond County, we worked out an agenda in a kind of order of priority and received word at the end of last week from Port Hawkesbury that they agree with the first joint meeting items that we were suggesting and offering to host, or unless we would like to host, and how, I guess at this point looking for some feedback from council as to how or if you'd like to proceed. In speaking with the CAO, Troy and I were discussing this earlier today, and we feel like if we don't do this in the next, in June, it's not going to happen. So, we could, at this point, we could ask staff to proceed with attempting to establish a date in June that works for as many as possible if councillors feel it's a good idea to proceed. But I'm not sure that we could lock ourselves in, just given people's schedules and the travel and et cetera that's going on. So, so we can leave it flexible to do our best, I guess, to try to, to try to schedule something, or if we feel that, it's maybe not the right time, that's fine as well. So, so any questions from council or comments on this one? Okay.
I mean, it just, excuse me. We've just been talking about this for so long, yes. And the list is so long, and there is certainly a part of me that says starting these discussions and then lead, in an election time, is it all for naught? Because certainly councils can change. But then the other part of me says setting the practice of us starting to have those meetings is a first step in itself that could set up a little bit of a precedence for the future councils. So I would be inclined to give it a try. I think that we should not worry about whether everyone on both councils can attend. I think we need to try to get the most number of people that we can get in each group together. And I would be fine to meet in Port Hawkesbury. And that's fine. So I think we should give it a try. I don't know how we're going to coordinate, like herding cats with dental floss, but we're going to do our best. So let's give it a try.
I think the thing for me that's the tipping point is the opportunity to potentially have a presentation from the Nova Scotia Nonprofit Housing Association to talk about, to both councils at once, where we already partner on the Straight Richmond Housing Coalition, and we are looking to partner on a nonprofit agency regionally here. So it's a big selling point for me, for sure. So if folks would agree, then I guess I'd entertain a motion to ask staff to proceed with scheduling a meeting. The biggest doodle poll ever during the month of June, if possible. And I would like to preface it or end it by saying if possible, because there's a chance that schedules just won't allow. Would someone care to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. Could I have a seconder, please? Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Thanks, Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm kind of two minds as well. Like, I don't know. I know this has been a bit of a, I can't think of a polite term, but anyway, it's been going on for a long time to try and set something up. To set up meetings was a little bit of an embarrassment, but it is probably a good idea in time. I don't know how worthwhile it is right at the end of a term when councils, depending how much changeover there would be between here and Port Hawkesbury, but I understand what you mean about sort of setting a precedent, and I think it would be good. I'd prefer to wait till the fall, but I'm not against having it now if that's what the majority would like to see.
Thanks, Councillor. It was a bit of a saga to get here, for sure. I agree. Any further discussion on this motion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so that motion is carried with one nay vote. Thank you, folks. The next item that was added to the agenda was an item regarding a housing development project, and I apologize for the late notice on this one, especially because we just got it today. So I did put it together after speaking with the Deputy Warden and CAO about it. We've received a letter from Lennox Place Limited regarding support for their proposed agreement with the Nova Scotia Affordable Housing Development Program to fund the conversion of a building into a 7-unit apartment building located at 818 Veterans Memorial Drive, Arishat. And her message is included in the information that I submitted below. And I'm assuming, Troy and Shelley, that these items added can be added to the package online for people to see? Okay. All right. So essentially, Rochelle is requesting to have council provide a letter of support and principle for the application that she's working on, and further to cover associated permitting fees. In speaking with Troy, and who you consulted, I believe, with John Bain today, I think last year our permitting fees for multi-unit buildings were in the $6,000 to $7,000 range for the whole year. So, you know, that would likely be a ceiling that we would not exceed for one particular project, considering that the year covered, you know, could have been covering more than one project. So we already do have mechanisms in place now with our bylaws and MPS through EDPC to support having the county cover such fees. So it's not that they necessarily can be waived, it's that the county would pay them in place of the developer. So that's why we've put together the outcome suggesting that that we would cover associated permitting fees up to $10,000. That's a number we picked because we are fairly confident it wouldn't exceed that, and we're looking at putting an amount above that in the budget for this fiscal year. In any case, anticipating more of these types of requests to come in, but they would be specific to multi-unit residential construction. So I'd open that for discussion from councillors, and maybe or a motion to that effect if you're interested in supporting that. But also, again, recognizing that it did come in fairly recently, and I'm sure that Ms. Sampson is likely working on a deadline. So did not want to let it languish in my inbox until the next meeting without bringing it forward.
Yeah, so Madam Warden, again, it's looking like Rochelle is in some sort of deadline here, and her funding is dependent on an investment from our municipality. So again, this is encouraging news. Last meeting we discussed the tendering process for the Walter Fougere School, and that's moving forward, and you're looking here at a potential 7-unit apartment here in Arishat. So these are all good news stories and very encouraging. So I would be for sure in favor of waiving those development fees and helping this project move forward with our investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. CAO, was there any additional context you wanted to add, or did I kind of capture it there?
I think you did fine, and the only thing that CMHC is looking for, there's a box on their application that you have to demonstrate proof of the municipality supporting your project, and that is done by it's done by both parts of having the letter of support and also the waiving of any building or permits for this project. That's the way the feds are looking for municipalities to support it. So where we belong to EDPC, and that is governed by a number of municipalities, that mechanism exists right now that it can happen in any municipality. The EDPC can't waive the fee. They just revert the fee back to the municipality that's agreeing to the development. So everything's in place for us to do this. We just needed a allocation of money within our budget for 24-25 so that we can draw these funds from. And again, that's part of our budget discussions right now.
Okay. Thank you, CAO. Comments from councillors, or would anyone care to make a motion to that effect, please?
She did ask for two, so I will say the developer did ask for two different things. One was a letter of support, and one was in terms of the fees. So I would prefer if we would deal with them separately, and I would be prepared to make a motion for a letter of support for their project.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that motion.
Thanks, Deputy Warden. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed? All right, that motion has been carried unanimously, and I think Troy, or maybe Deputy Warden, I think you've been in contact with Ms. Sampson, so between us we can let her know that that's been approved. So the second part of the request was to waive or reimburse regarding any upcoming permit fees. So I would open that for discussion or a motion.
So I would be open to making that motion, yes, please. Yep.
So the limit that we had suggested in the memo was 10,000. Is that an acceptable
Yep.
amount? Do you feel it's too high? It's definitely on the high side of what we anticipate that, they would encounter.
Right.
But
Yeah.
not.
So to not exceed the 10,000. Yep. Yeah, so there's some wiggle room there, yep. Yep, I'd be okay with that motion, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so the motion.
I'm going to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson has seconded the motion. So further discussion. I feel like there's further discussion.
Yes, I seconded it because as we're talking, again, it was late coming to us, and so I have had no time to really, so I do have questions about the requirement for us to waive the fees. And I've just been kind of, as we're talking, hunting through the internet and pounds of paper to try to find out where it says that that's required. I do see parts where it talks about that they needed basically to have asked for that to happen, but not necessary. I could not find a spot that said it had to happen, but I trust that you've had that conversation. So if you could just be very clear with me in terms of what CMHC is requiring that they have versus what they would like for them to have.
Is this a provincial program?
This is CMHC. It is the third developer that is asking for this. I had the other two on hold waiting until we had our budget and the pool of money to draw from. So two of them have already come to us that they have this requirement waiting for them as well, for that allocation in our budget for them to draw from to waive those fees. I told them the mechanism's in place already. I just need the budget for us to start waiving these fees and the motion of council to make it happen. It is a requirement. They can put their application in, but they are scored lower. They do not have the buy-in from the municipality.
Financial buy-in.
Financial
buy-in, not just buy-in like a letter of support.
Thank you, Troy.
So, yeah, so like if there's other developers have come forward as well, like will we see that next month likely now or? Yeah,
They have the budget. They're just waiting on the budget.
I know, I'm just wondering what the difference is here, why we got this one in the queue right away where other people were asked to wait.
Yeah, so this one came in today, and staff is far enough along in the budgeting process from chatting with Troy that we now have a sense of what of whether or not we'll be able to support any of these. So they're looking at carving a chunk of funds out. It's not set in stone, and it won't be until we vote on the budget. So the option is to defer this to budget with the rest, but I think the staff felt they were far enough along in the budgeting process, kind of aligning with the priorities we talk about around this table, that housing is a priority, that we could, I felt we could bring this one forward, but we don't need to make a decision on this piece this evening if we're more comfortable referring it to budget.
So, yeah, so Madam Warden, that's where I would like to go, if we can make a friendly amendment to the, I know, she's waiting in, many are, but we're only a week away or a week and a half away, 2 weeks away at most. I would like to refer to our budget so that we can see the whole picture as opposed to, that's just.
Yeah, I want to see this go ahead. I want to support this. I just don't want to be picking winners and losers when we haven't even seen other applications kind of thing. Like, I don't think that's fair to anybody else that had already come forward. I'd be just as happy to be looking at all three of them or whatever, and hopefully maybe we're able to support all of them, because I think, everybody around this table, housing's a big priority, that we want to see this move forward. So, I mean, as soon as we possibly can, only because I know, we're already kind of behind the 8 ball with building season, so.
Madam Chair, if I may as well.
Sure.
There's no guarantee that the other two have waited either. They may have gone in with their applications, just knowing that it was going to hurt their application, that they didn't have that. So I have no idea if they waited or not, but I'll be checking.
So
with
it's
them.
not that there's a formal request ahead of us right now from these folks?
No formal request at this point, other
So we
than
have
saying,
one formal
listen,
request.
I'm going to need this going in because
Right.
it'll hurt my application if I don't have it. And I said, well, as soon as we get it approved at budget, I'll be getting back to you.
Yeah.
Right?
And I would assume there would have been formal requests had they thought it would be able to move forward, right? So I don't have any idea. I don't know if anybody knows whether or not if somebody gets it after the fact, once they've submitted their application, they may be able to contact CMHC and look, this has changed. So,
Or it's possible that the other two applicants held off, and it's not time sensitive like Rochelle's situation. I'm thinking the Lennox Place situation might be time sensitive, and maybe the other two were not, right? So I don't know.
Yep. Yeah.
yeah, I'd like to move on it as quick as possible, but just with all the details, that's all. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So the motion is on the floor, and it sounds like we would kind of have more of a majority opinion that we would want to refer this to budget. So maybe we'll just vote on that motion and then make it a separate one to officially refer to budget. Is that okay? Okay. So all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, nay. That motion is not carried. So I'll look for an additional motion to refer this to budget for future consideration.
So I would make a motion to refer to budget for future consideration. I'm going to throw a curveball. I would further move that that shortly after our budget session, we hold a special meeting. That we ask the CAO to reach out to the other potential developers, and that following our budget, we have a special meeting so that we can get them fully approved as quickly as possible.
Okay, so the motion is to refer this to budget and to, upon approval of the budget, to reach out to the other developers to see if they're interested in making a formal request as well. Okay? And holding a special meeting right afterwards so we can get it on the go. Okay. All right. Is that okay with everyone? All right. So could I have a seconder on that motion?
I'll second.
I think the deputy warden put his hand up and beat
Go ahead.
to it.
Yep. I'll second that motion. Yep.
It's a race.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Deputy Warden. Any further discussion on that item? Sorry, I didn't have my button on, so we're going to move on to question period, which is restricted to the remainder of the agenda following the committee reports. For folks watching at home, the number to call is 902-226-9885. That's 902-226-9885. And we'll just give that a minute. And I'm not sure when my button turned off, but in case folks watching at home missed it, we did make a separate motion to refer the housing permit fees coverage to budget, but further that we would, upon approval of the budget, reach out to additional developers who had expressed an interest in this, as well as scheduling a special meeting to make sure that we could act on it as quickly as possible following budget. So I'm not sure when my... Not approval of the budget. Yeah, but... Run through the budget. Run through the budget, exactly. So I'm not sure where my mic cut off, so I just want to make sure folks watching at home got that piece of the puzzle, so... All right, we'll just give it a minute for the question period. Okay, so I'm not hearing the phone ring, and it's a quiet council chambers this evening, so we'll bring the question period to a close, and there being no further business, I will declare the meeting adjourned. So thank you very much, folks, for coming in, and to those watching at home.